Okay guys, in this video we're going to be taking another look at Bitcoin just to report on the recent progress that we've been having here with BTC. Guys, as always, if you find it useful, you know what to do. Hit that like button, I really appreciate it. If you're new, do go ahead and subscribe. Right, let's jump right on into this one. We can obviously see that we are here with Bitcoin on the daily chart. And obviously we still have that Wyckoff accumulation pattern here, and things are heading, as kind of expected here, up towards this 40k level. And again, ultimately what we're seeing here is, basically this accumulation pattern kind of coming to fruition, pushing up towards this 40k is my expectation before we have a small pullback, and then go up to about 41, maybe 42 at an upper boundary level. Before getting a pullback down, and then obviously we'll get into the later stages of phase B, which will ultimately put this thing into a decision-making scenario, whether or not there's going to be many people who have long positions or many people who are leveraging short positions. Ultimately, the institutions and the master manipulators behind the Wyckoff accumulation will be deciding which way to go. There's a couple of variations. We might not see the spring event, which, it all depends on whether or not people are going long on Bitcoin or going short on Bitcoin. And you'll have these two different ways that you can kind of go, right? And obviously people talk about potentially going down to 20k. This kind of makes me feel that there are people putting in short positions, and they specifically will be going short here, I feel, on the way down, being laid a trap here. So I'm not 100% certain whether a spring event will happen. And in fact, if there's too many people going short, that ultimately Bitcoin will actually deviate away and go up, and go off into phase C and D from a different angle. So always mindful of what's going on. And again, not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but I generally avoid using leverage, and I like to own the cryptocurrencies, and that way I do not expose myself to this kind of manipulation. This video is sponsored by Crypto.com, the world's fastest growing crypto app. With Crypto.com, you can buy that fear and sell your cryptocurrency. You can, of course, earn a juicy return on your investment and spend your cryptocurrency via their debit card. You can track all your transactions, and of course, we cannot forget their new NFT platform. So why not check out Crypto.com? Link is down in the description below, and you will get a $25 sign-up bonus. Right, with that being said, obviously, guys, we obviously want to be paying attention to what's been most recently going on here with BTC. Obviously, anyone who's been following the channel for the last few days, specifically maybe the last week or so, when we've been talking about reaching down our secondary test in phase B, pushing on up with the pullback in the middle. And now we're heading up towards that high level there of 40k before pullback. So anyone who was around on the weekend would have noticed that we've been talking quite heavily about a parallel channel that's appeared here on the BTC chart. So again, on this hourly, here we can see that we really entered this over the weekend, and we broke the downward trend. We started pushing up. And this parallel channel started to form very, very nicely. There was a couple of breakout moments here, but we entered a world of just overbought briefly during this moment here, and ultimately got pulled right back in. And again, these were kind of in line with some support and resistance lines in the previous history over here. So again, following that suit, we came down, testing the lower boundaries as we lowered that relative strength index. And obviously we started to increase just above the midway point. But again, we're nice and high on this relative strength index, so I am expecting a slight pullback with BTC to retest this lower bound again before going up and testing the higher bounds again. I imagine that we're going to be stuck inside this parallel channel all the way up towards our 40k level, not too much further to go. And then once we're at the top there, we'll have a pull down. And again, I think we'll probably test the lower boundary of this level, and then a breakout of this channel in a fake out, in my opinion, testing the upper boundaries of that 41 to 42k range before getting absolutely getting that rug kind of pulled from beneath us and getting pulled down. So right now, when we take a look at BTC, we can see that we're inside this parallel channel. And again, my expectations are we'll stay inside this channel all the way up to 40k. I do not see us kind of coming out of this channel at this point, considering where we are with the relative strength index. It does depend, of course, on what happens with the volume. Right now, we can obviously see here on the volume side of things, so we have significant volume on the increase on the way up here, and the volumes are starting to run out of steam, and we can see that volumes are decreasing. We're stabilizing right here. The expectations are to kind of just pull down into this lower boundary just down here, retest this kind of support line, and then obviously get a reversal on the volume, pushing that back up. But we do need to obviously lower our relative strength index on that journey. So ultimately, we're looking to kind of slowly ease our way down to this lower bound, keep that volume nice and low, make sure that doesn't do anything too crazy whilst we correct the relative strength index. And then once we're testing this area, we'll look for support, bring that volume back in, bring the swing to the upside on the relative strength index, and then we'll test this upper bound, I think, and then we'll continue to kind of test this lower bound before getting up towards that 40k level. And like I said, that's where we'll see the significant pullback. Whether we'll stay inside the channel on that pullback is the thing that we're going to be really watching out for. My expectations are that we'll probably pull down towards this 35k level, and I reckon that this is going to be a key area for us, during this kind of correction from 40, and then obviously we'll push up into the 42. So I think this is going to be an interesting zone. We're going to be watching this kind of kind of continue all its way up here during the week, and then I think in the later part of the week we'll start seeing this correction over the weekend. Lots of fear will be in the space, kind of bringing the Bitcoin price down, only to see that reverse in the next week or so. So again, if I just pull this back up into our daily, again, where we are in this pattern here is, at least in my opinion, heading up towards this one. We've kind of had the pullback in the middle. You can see that now we're going up towards our upper boundary just here, and that's our next target. Okay, so we're looking for getting this target kind of pulled on through. Once we get this target, we'll come down to this lower bound. I think this will be the weekend kind of job where we'll have this pullback. I reckon this will be about 35k, and then in the next week we'll go up again, hitting that kind of 40, 41, 42 area. It'll be higher than where we achieved on this particular part of the phase, so we'll go higher, and then obviously we'll have the rug kind of pulled out, and then obviously once we're down here, this will be approximately around 31k. Decisions will be made as to whether or not the phase C will be the upper bound variation or the lower bound variation of the Wyckoff accumulation. So we have to be mindful. We won't know what's going to happen until we get down here, when we can review how many short positions there are and how many long positions there are, and specifically the value in those during that time, because ultimately the institutions will liquidate whichever one is worth the most, in my opinion. So again, two variations to watch out for with that. So right now we're just looking to move the price up, have the pullback over the weekend, and then go up again next week before we really do tumble back down to 31k. And then again, lots of people are talking about maybe 20k, all that kind of stuff. And I've marked those out on this chart as well, guys. So we have 20k down here. This is the lower orange line. We have 24.5k. This seems to be quite a sensible area. And again, we have 28k. Again, lower than our selling climax, lower than our secondary test in phase B would be the spring event. So again, it's possible that we do have this go down as low as maybe 24. 20 is going to be incredibly difficult. It would be abnormal to pull down as low as 20k during this particular pattern. It's not impossible, but it'd be very, very odd and unusual. 24k would be an extreme variation of a spring event. So my likelihood here is that we'll probably pull down towards the 28, 27 kind of level. Nothing really lower than that would be strange, to be honest with you. We pull down a little bit lower. So the expectations right now, obviously, continue with phase B, see what happens here, whether a spring event happens, whether or not we actually go into a different variation. And then once all that is done and out of the way, everything kind of is business as usual at that point. We obviously go into the sign of strength, pushing through phase D. It's very bullish at this point. The narratives in the space will be changed. We'll be testing quite heavily this upper bound here. And then obviously we'll go straight on up from here. Now, obviously, when we pull this up into our weekly chart, we obviously have some pretty decent expectations with Bitcoin price. Depending on how low this potentially does go, right now, this would be indicating to us about 182k. If we were to drop down towards that 27.5, we're talking about 186 or 188 in that kind of range. If we were to go down to the 24k range, then that would basically indicate that we'll be going up towards like a 195, 196k area. And if you were to go all the way down to that 20k range, which would be unusual in my opinion, then we would obviously be looking at about $210,000 on the next wave to the upside. So we have to be mindful of where these things are likely to go. My expectations are that we'll probably pull down no lower than maybe the 24 range area, and then obviously that puts us at just under the 200k range for BTC, which again is in line with our expectations when we take a look at a few other things, such as the Bitcoin dominance. And again, Bitcoin dominance is doing exactly what it had done previously. So again, all of that is in line with our expectations here with BTC, looking to push up towards the 50%, maybe up towards the 60% before all those altcoins go parabolic, bringing Bitcoin dominance down towards the 30% levels. Nothing there has really changed. We take a look at the EVI dashboards, and obviously here we can see the fear when it comes to Bitcoin is actually performing incredibly well, right? We're up at B3, which is totally different to the current fear and greed index that you see out there. So again, all of that is working for us in our favor right now. So all nothing to worry about from a BTC fear and greed index. There are still risks to the rewards with the Sharpe ratio, however, and the moving averages are obviously still not good. But from a profitability, that's up at A1. We have, of course, the peak end value demand up at B2. There is, of course, still liquidity issues with many coins, and Bitcoin is no exception to that one. And lots obviously going on with the miners in China and, moving to different countries trying to set up their operations. So the hash rate has fallen significantly. So obviously liquidity is going to be affected by a lot of that stuff as well. So again, I think ultimately we're in a pretty reasonable position. But again, we're still not out of the woods. When we take a look at our daily chart, we can obviously see where the expectations are for BTC in this particular Wyckoff accumulation pattern. It does indicate to us that we are not through the worst of this yet. That is still to come. And obviously, once we get past phase C, that puts us into a phase D, a very bullish scenario where, we'll be looking forward to those fantastic highs to come in the second half of this year. I'm super confident that this bull run is still on track. We're still seeing exactly what we need to see from the charts. The patterns are forming exactly as expected at the moment. So nothing really to, worry anyone at this point. Obviously, it's just good to know where those major points of resistance and support are going to be found, what kind of patterns we're likely to see going forward, and if there are any traders out there, they'll be able to use these patterns to their advantages to know where to potentially place their buys and sells. Now, I'm not obviously a trader, I'm not a financial advisor or anything like that, but I do hold Bitcoin. I hodl it all the way through and dollar cost average better positions along that journey. And I think Chris does exactly the same. So again, it's just important that we are aware that we're not going into a bear market. We understand the patterns that are forming here, and actually there is a light at the end of the tunnel where we do in fact move back to the upside. So dollar cost averaging during this Wyckoff accumulation, doing exactly what the institutions are doing, isn't a bad move in my opinion. So guys, hopefully you have found this brief update for Bitcoin useful and informative. If you have, then do go ahead and hit that like button. I really do appreciate it. Of course, do subscribe if you're new to the channel and you want to stay up to date with those new cryptocurrencies. Hit the bell, tap on all, and you won't miss a single video. With that said, done and out of the way, guys, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.